Thank you so much for everyone making their time to come and join my team and I here at Osmasa. We're coming to you from Melbourne. Really looking forward to spending the next 90 minutes with you to explore all things workforce planning as it impacts our amazing automotive industry. So we do have an agenda that I can take us through, including just letting everyone know right from the outset that we are obviously recording this webinar, so just be aware of that. But before we get too far into today's proceedings, I would like to do an acknowledgement to country. And that's one of the things, look, within Osmasa, we get a great privilege of travelling the breadth and height and the whole country and visit with industry, and in doing so, we get the opportunity to be on many different First Nations lands. And so wherever you are joining us from today, on behalf of all of us, really would just like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which we live and work. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. And we certainly honour and pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, including any that might be in our meeting with us today. Now, I am normally Perth-based, which means that if that was the case, I would be joining you from the Whadjuk people from the Noongar Nation, but I have actually flown into Perth to be with Melbourne, to be with a broader team. And so at the risk of getting the pronunciation wrong, I do believe we are on Wurundjeri land. So fantastic to be able to come to you from there. So awesome. Okay. Now, I did forget to introduce myself. For that, I apologise. My name is Jan Norberger. I have the great privilege of being the General Manager for Workforce Strategy and Industry Engagement here at Osmasa. And one of the key things that my team work on is actually getting the pulse of industry, engaging with industry to understand what the issues are, what the skills challenges and skills shortages are. And one of our key deliverables under a Jobs and Skills Council program is an annual workforce plan. And certainly we thank each one of you for making the time to help us make sure we have the priorities set correctly for the 2024 workforce plan, which we're currently working on. And you can see with the other camera activated, that's sort of me twice. Look at me, I'm waving at myself, but also I've got Michael Rose, who's my Manager of Industry Engagement. There you go, see the back of his head. Almost off camera, but not quite, is Annalise, who is our Manager of Marketing and Comms and is a trusty producer for this interactive webinar. And then I've also got Will Henderson, who is my Manager for Industry Engagement. Also just want to give a very quick shout out to the other Osmasa staff that have joined this interactive webinar from various parts of Australia where we're represented. Okay, awesome. So as far as this session goes, we have allowed 90 minutes, and I'll give a bit of a background in a moment in regard to, you know, some of the housekeeping in regard to how we're going to make that work. But as far as an agenda goes, I really only want to spend a short 10 minutes to recap some of the work that was completed for the initial workforce plan, which was published in November 2023, really just as a scene setter. And in doing so, give everyone a bit of an update in regard to the journey that we're on towards the development of the 2024 workforce plan. But the really exciting thing that we're looking forward to is spending some time with you through 4 sessions to really try and make sure that we're targeting some of the key issues that are impacting our automotive industry. And right from the outset, we realise that, look, 90 minutes will not do these important themes complete justice. You could pick one of these sessions and probably do a full day, you know, deep dive workshop and probably still have things left to chew the fat on. So for us, it's really important that if nothing else, that we at least capture your insights, your sentiment, your feedback. We're happy to continue the work outside of this webinar to make sure we unpack any issues or opportunities or challenges that we identify together beyond this session. So from a reality setting point of view, sorry, we're going to have a glass of water already early. we realise that within 90 minutes, it'll be the key thing is to capture the things that industry would like us to focus on in the workforce plan. The team and I will then go off and do that, and certainly engage with people again. But having a look, session 1, after we've spoken about the initial workforce plan, is going to have a little bit of a look around workforce attraction and retention. Then we'll look at training needs and how the industry interacts with the VET system, the important journey to net zero that we are all on, and what the automotive industry, its role within that, and some of our challenges and opportunities, and then finish off with having a look at emerging skills, in essence, what's on the horizon, what's around the corner, and then we'll wrap up the session from there. So as far as a little bit of housekeeping goes, some of this I've already covered. We're going to be spending about 90 minutes together. The session is being recorded, so as soon as this session is completed, you will get an email sent to you with a link to the recording, and you might just need to then fast forward 8 or 9 or 11 minutes, because I think it just started recording a little bit early, but that's okay. The setup that we have, don't read into it. Everyone is muted and everyone's camera's off. You have not been individually targeted. So it's just so that we can make this work for everyone. Again, it is an interactive session, so we do want to use the range of technology that is available to us. My team is monitoring the Teams chat, so whilst I focus on looking into the camera at you and talking, do feel free to avail yourself to that chat. We've got both Michael and Will monitoring that, so we're absolutely going to be able to engage with you on the fly with that. We've also got some moderated Q&A segments. We've even created some online polls to stimulate some discussion, and we can also do some word cloud generation as well. We do have the ability to activate people's microphones. So if there's a real burning issue, and if we've got the time and someone really feels that it's going to be too difficult to put a view or a position on the chat, then maybe just reach out on the chat. We'll play that by ear. This is the first time that Osmasa is using this platform for an interactive roundtable in essence. So we're all on a learning journey together. But we can do that if that works for everyone, and we'll just need to play that by ear. The one thing I will say is that if we do activate your microphone, be prepared to really give a great elevator pitch. 90 seconds. We won't have the time to give people 5-10 minutes to put their positions. As always, I don't think we have this issue with the amazing stakeholders that we get to work with, but we really look forward to gaining different views and opinions, and we may not always agree, or there might be differences in that, but let's just respect each other's views and opinions. Totally understand if something comes up, people may need to leave. You'll still get a recording if you do. And importantly, from our point of view, we're more than happy to follow up with any of the individual participants outside of this webinar, so that if you've raised something and we realise that due to time constraints, we haven't had the chance to do as deep a dive as we may have liked, absolutely we'll reach out and chat to you afterwards, and we can then explore that theme in greater detail. And as I said, it is a learning journey for us too. So probably before the end of the week, we'll send something out to you to maybe just get your feedback in regard to this format that we're using, what worked, what maybe didn't, things that you might like to see us do differently, just so that we can continue to improve the way that we engage with our stakeholders and work together for the betterment of our industry. Fantastic. All right. Housekeeping out of the way. I'll move on. So as far as the initial workforce plan goes, I've got some QR codes up on the screen there. The one on the bottom left is, and you can even scan that now using your phone if you like. If you haven't already downloaded your own personal private PDF copy of the initial workforce plan, please do avail yourself to that. And then the QR code on the bottom right is an opportunity for you to also provide feedback against that initial workforce plan. And you can drill down right down to individual sections. So if you read it and you think, you know what, it would have been great if you went into more detail in this area, or you raised this issue, but you didn't raise another issue, all that feedback is welcome. As I indicated, the initial workforce plan was published in November last year. So in the grand scheme of things, it's actually got a fairly short lifespan, because we are already well and truly working towards the 2024 workforce plan. But The department felt it was important that all the Jobs and Skills Councils in the inauguration year last year did at least an initial scan of the industries that we serve, and look at some of that high-level data that is representative of the demographics of the workforce, and start to identify some of the challenges and opportunities that are faced by those industries. And we feel that the initial workforce plan certainly achieved that, and for us it's really a springboard now to go into greater detail and a greater granularity. I will mention that hopefully all of you have received the data dashboards as far as they pertain to the automotive industry. And if not, Annalise has kindly put a link in the chat earlier, so you can even click on that now and download that. So those data dashboards are quite up-to-date data, so just be aware that the data in the actual initial workforce plan has already been updated, and those data dashboards are representative of the type of data and the increased granularity of data that is going to be going into the 2024 workforce plan. Now, the reason we sent them out to yourselves beforehand is that if we were to go through each one of those dashboards now, that would more or less probably take up the entire interactive webinar, and we would lose the word interactive. But hopefully, as many of you as possible may have had a chance to have a look at those dashboards, and that may well prompt some of the conversation today. And if not, if there's things that you'd like to talk to us about around some of that high-level data outside of this webinar, please do reach out. Now, with workforce planning, the generation of a workforce plan is a strategic centerpiece of the Jobs and Skills Council framework with the Department of Employment and Workforce Relations. And one of the key reasons for that is that the workforce plan is each Jobs and Skills Council's way, or primary way, of informing government, industry, and other stakeholders. And we're delighted to have a lot of registered training organisations and TAFEs with us today. So a broad range of stakeholders in regard to the makeup of the industries that we serve, so the demographics, the workforce numbers, the trends, the growth or decline, as it may be, some of the identified skills shortages, projected growth in key job roles, the training makeup, age, gender, all of the demographics to get a better understanding of the industry that we're actually serving. But then really analysing that data and adding the narrative to that, and identifying current and future challenges, trends, opportunities that need to be considered when we're making decisions around workforce strategies. And those decisions could be made by individual industry participants in their own setting of their own HR plans. It could be helpful to industry peak bodies, and certainly also government relies on these workforce plans to help inform some of their priority policy setting as well. Ultimately, as we know, with workforce planning, it's all designed to give us the tools we need to help us come up with strategies to help industry attract and retain the right people with the right skills at the right time and in the right locations. So that's why we produce and put so much effort into our workforce plan. So in relation to Osmarth's approach, and this may just help to give you a bit of a clearer understanding as to where the subdivisions of those dashboards that we've sent out to you come from, is we use a combination of ANZIC and ANZSCO to create what we call our backbone, or our workforce plan backbone, leveraging into the Australian Bureau of Statistics. Now, ANZIC, as you can see on the screen there, stands for Australian and New Zealand Standard Industrial Classification System. And we use that to actually help peg out, if you like, the boundaries of our responsibility as a Jobs and Skills Council in identifying all of the workforce that comes under our remit within our industry. Within that, once we've been able to identify not a great use of term, but our patch of influence, then we rely on ANZSCO, which is the Australian and New Zealand Standard Classification of Occupations, to help define the job roles that sit within that. And we know that ANSCO has been going through a review and it's being updated, and no system is perfect. But at the end of the day, we still feel that we live in an amazing country where we've got access to great data and government curated data, which is very, very helpful. So everyone put your reading glasses on if you haven't already got it, or everyone lean into your screens now, because if you were to map what our backbone looks like at Osmasa, and you'll see the split between mining and automotive, that's what it would look like, what is up on your screen now. And that is using ANZIC. So that is the industry classification. And you'll see that progressively as you go further to the right with ANZIC, you get into more and more details as you go down into subclasses and subdivisions. The yellow little surrounded rectangular boxes there give you an indication of where we have decided to focus our data analytics on within each of the industries. And so if you look at the automotive, that is now gives you an idea of why you would have gotten 3 different dashboards in your pre-reading. So that when we look at the automotive industry, we look at it from an automotive manufacturing perspective. Oh, can everyone else see the slide? Or I know one user can't see the slide, but does someone want to give me a thumbs up if you can see the current slide? Okay. So cool, just minor heart attack avoided, but I am sorry for that individual who can't see the slide, but we will make the slide deck available afterwards. Just imagine a really, really good scatter diagram and work with me. We'll move on from this slide shortly anyway. But yeah, so the way we look at the automotive industry very broadly is the automotive manufacturing industry, then the retail and wholesale of motor vehicles and motor vehicle parts, and then automotive repair and maintenance. And the aggregate of those 3 gives us the entire automotive industry. And you'll see a dashboard, in fact, coming up right now, which is the aggregate. So the entire aggregate is when we talk about the automotive industry, what we're really saying is that we've got a workforce based on the labour force survey of 338,000 odd employees or workers within our industry. Now, the data pack that you would have gotten will go into a lot more detail, and you can actually see some of the key job roles, including some of their future predicted demand, education profiles. But even at an overall level, this is not an insignificant or tiny industry, far from it. We know that as far as registered vehicles, there's about 21.5 million and vehicles on our roads, over 27,000 repair workshops. So it is a significant industry that we support. But even at that high level of data, and we'll be exploring some of that at the moment, we know that as an industry, we probably don't do as well as we really would like to in the area of female participation. What we probably do better than some other industries is our ability to attract younger people to our industry. And that's not to say we don't have our challenges. We know that we've got a number of endemic skill shortages in key roles, and there's always more people that we would love to have join. But even if you have a look at that age distribution profile at the bottom and some of the statistics at the top, 17.6% of the workforce would be what we would still currently classify as Gen Z, although Gen Alpha is probably right on our doorstep now as well. When you go to the other end of that age distribution curve and you start looking at that age bracket that becomes prone to retirement, noting that some people obviously may choose to continue working well into their late 60s and even early 70s, especially if they're business owners or, in whatever role they might be in. But nonetheless, aged 60 plus is about 11.4%. So trust me, I've seen some industry dashboards where the potential retirement wave is much, much higher than the attraction wave, which is problematic. We know that as an industry, the automotive industry is a big supporter and reliant on the vocational education and training system. There are a lot of trades within our sector that need to be supported. So the use of apprenticeships is strong and important. And that's why, from Osmasa's perspective, it's critical that we work closely with industry to make sure that the vet system and the qualifications and units within it are actually serving industry well, because it has got a very strong reliance on that as well. The other interesting thing is that if this was the mining webinar, and you're welcome to come back this afternoon and join us for that as well, that little map of Australia would look very different. We know that mining is, strongly skewed to, well, predominantly Western Australia, and I'm not just saying that because I'm a West Aussie, but it just is how it is, as well as then, say, Queensland and then New South Wales. But the automotive industry is truly nicely distributed, almost perfectly in line with population distribution, which to a degree you would expect, because it's where people live, is where they would like to purchase and also have their vehicles serviced and repaired and maintained. So we know that there are certain hubs around Australia, especially when we start looking at automotive manufacturing and some of the cool thing that's happening there. But as an aggregate, the industry is well distributed. So that is just a really brief, very brief overview. Like I said, if we wanted to really go data diving, you'd have to clear your calendar for the rest of the day. And one of the things that we're really looking forward to is me to stop talking, and with the technology that we have available to us, to actually start engaging with you to, have a look at some of the things that we know are challenging for us. And so for the first session that we wanted to spend, I think we've got 20 minutes for this one, is to just spend some time with you talking around, look, what are some of our workforce attraction and retention challenges within the industry? I've got another slide here, and this is not to limit us. This is, if anything, maybe to prompt us. So the table there is the latest statistics. So this is updated compared to the one that's in the initial workforce plan, but from the National Skills Priority List in regard to the occupations within the automotive industry that are currently recognised by government as experiencing a skills shortage. And the different colours and what you see there, if it's that orangey auburn colour with an S, it means it's in a shortage. The light green is a regional shortage, which indicates that, well, as the name implies, that job role or that occupation within a metropolitan setting is not considered to be in shortage. But if you go into regional locations, it would be deemed to be in shortage. And the no shortage one is, as implies, no implied shortage. Now, that's not to say you can't disagree with that. In fact, if you do disagree with that, by all means, please tell us. But I'm going to stop talking, and we do have some polls, but I thought we'll just get the conversation started around, what are some of the challenges. But equally, I'd be really keen to know, look, we know the data is telling us that we have shortages, that we're struggling. There's been some great industry surveys from the AAA, from the Motor Trades Associations, from the Capricorn Society. We've got data showing us, for example, that on average it takes about almost 6 to 7 months to recruit a qualified automotive technician, which is not fantastic. But I'd also love to hear what is working. What are some initiatives that you may have heard of, or in fact are applying yourselves, that is helping, whether that's closer engagement with local schools, whatever that might be. I do have some prompt questions here if we need to. So if I get crickets, I will prompt us, and I do have some polls as well, but I'm going to be quiet and we'll go to the chat and see if anyone wants to kick us off in regard to any views around this area. I have a glass of water. Okay, is anyone typing? I don't know, possibly. If no one's typing, yeah, some of the prompt questions are, what specific challenges do we face keeping workers in the industry? Because it's one thing to attract them, but also if we are losing them, and I know that depending on the state that you might be from, I know when we were talking to our colleagues in Adelaide, there's a lot of competition there with the defence industry, and in WA and Queensland, obviously we do lose workers to the mining industry. Okay, fantastic. It's probably from our colleagues from Isaac NT. Specifically for the NT, as we have a large mining industry compared to our population, our young automotive students are heavily skewed towards the heavy diesel industry as opposed to other disciplines. Okay, great, thank you. Yeah, wages. So and that's come up in a lot, and it's interesting. We've had differing views as to whether the wage rate within the automotive industry is an issue, and certainly we have heard from a number of stakeholders that people leave the automotive industry simply because they can earn better money elsewhere, even outside of their trade. So if that's the case, if you agree with that, maybe give an up thumb to that little comment in the chat there that said due to wages. But if you have an alternative view, and if you think no, wages are not as big an issue, love to hear from you. The other point of discussion that we have had lately, what are we doing with schools careers advisors to promote the industry? Great comment. That is something that is on our radar. So thank you for confirming that we know that the perception of the industry seems to be still quite outdated. And it's, the danger is that when parents or younger people are potentially considering careers, that perhaps the advice they're getting or a lack of advice falls back on ingrained perceptions, is that it's a dirty, greasy, low IQ type industry, which of course we know is absolutely not the case. The technological advancements within the automotive industry make it for a phenomenally interesting and rewarding career opportunity. But the key is to get that message out there. So that is not lost on us. And in fact, Osmasa is recently, within the last 2 weeks, has launched a project that you're welcome to stay closely engaged with in regard to doing research into community perceptions of the automotive industry, and specifically Generation Z. Okay, so what have we got here? Gen Y, Z statistically will have 8 complete career changes throughout their working life. Auto dealerships are mainly doing servicing. And in New South Wales, we have 50% completion rates for apprentices at TAFE. Oops, hang on, you guys are typing faster than I can read. Co-competitor. Yeah, right, okay. Wages are a challenge, but that can be addressed through other options, flexible work and non-cash benefits. Yeah, thank you for whoever wrote that comment as well. And we have heard, and I know even in Michael's travels, have heard some great individual examples of where automotive employers are applying different strategies, including, trying to mimic in WA like a drive-in, drive-out roster. So where their roster, even though they are working in a metro area and working with the automotive setting, getting a more flexible roster as well. We know cost of living pressures is obviously an issue. Great to see the clear pathway to university or further learning, late engagement with students if they're not engaged. Again, that's something that as a team we are keenly looking at in regard to pathway opportunities. Yeah, and so careers advisors are doing a good job. Doesn't help when our apprenticeship retention rates are below 50%. Probably gives us a great segue. I mean, the apprenticeship graduation rate or completion rate of 58%, ironically, is actually better than the all trades average. So let's all start off, if you like, by giving ourselves a pat on the back from an automotive industry point of view. But nonetheless, what it does mean that for all of the effort that we go to attract people to our industry and then get them into an apprenticeship, we still almost lose 1 and 2. Now, I understand it's unrealistic to aim for 100% completion or a crazy high, but it does seem that the more we can do to help people at least finish their apprenticeship, it's the first step in maintaining them in that career. Some of the conversations we've had of late, it's quite interesting in regard to the differing views as to the mentoring and the support that's being provided to apprentices, and especially around the question of whose responsibility that it is. So just to get us going and using some of the tools to our avail, I might ask Annalise, we do have a poll. I'm going to pop that up and that'll get everyone going. So that should pop up now. And the question is, aside from the apprentice themselves, because we know that the apprentice obviously has a critical role to play in their own education, but who has the primary responsibility for an apprentice's education and skills development? Is that the training provider or is it the employer? So we'll see. give everyone a bit of a moment to complete that. I can't see the results coming in yet, but I think Annalise can.
73% employer, 27% RTO.
Okay.
Sitting around that 23 versus 77 mark.
There you go. I should probably vote as well. Probably not. Then I'll skew it. I won't vote. I'll close that. So thank you for everyone that's taking part in that. I'll give you a few more seconds, and then I think Annalise is going to share the results with us. I believe it's going to pop up in the.
I'm just going to close. Oh, we've had a few. Okay, I'm going to close the poll. Right. And we're sitting at 82% employer and 18% TAFE RTO.
Yeah. Okay. Does that surprise anyone? I suppose the 18% that feel that it's the RTO. Be interesting to note, and again, you might have noticed that in the chat, everyone comes up as anonymous, so no one can trace anything back to you. But if you were one of the 18% who said the RTO, even if you want to use the chat, are you in fact an RTO and you're just, proudly claiming that as a key responsibility for yourself? Or are you from industry and you believe it is the RTO's responsibility? Would be really keen to understand. So I'm not sure if anyone wants to. So if you were one of the 18%, maybe pop something in the chat, whether you would, or whether are you from government or another stakeholder, just to get a bit of a feel. Nope, everyone's gun shy. No, that's okay.
You're good government, aren't you?
Oh, yeah. Oh, hang on. Yeah, that's right. I'll need to scroll down again, don't I? Here we go. Employer. Okay. Okay. Yeah, so there's one question here. Does that mean the RTOs aren't held accountable for their training delivery? So, yeah, good point. I mean, I think our understanding of the question, and I suppose why we wanted to test it with yourselves today, is this notion around some of the conversations we've had is that, look, the RTOs, TAFEs, RTOs, can do everything they can in regard to teaching some of the skills, be it in the classroom and in the workshops, and we know that a lot of the training providers have some amazing facilities, and so that does give the students a great introduction to certain skills. But certainly when we've been talking to some of our stakeholders, the theme that we were beginning to hear is that, look, because of the skills shortage and because of the shortage that we have of key workers, that the mentoring in the workplace is probably not to the same standard as what it may have been in previous years. And that's not to say that that was, being done deliberately so, but it was this notion as almost a impact of everyone being understaffed and overworked, and this notion that the feeling was perhaps that, hey, look, employers are just hoping that the TAFEs are doing all the teaching, and then when they come into the workforce, it's okay, you got to pick up a tool and off you go. I need you to be in there. Keen to see if people either disagree with that or would like to add something to that. I'll be quiet for a moment. TAFE isn't the issue. The classroom-based environment is great for apprentices. They get to engage with each other. Work-based delivery of training for apprentices does need to be done better. Okay, great. Thank you. Happy to see if anyone else wants to add anything to that. Look, that's certainly sort of the theme that we've been hearing as well, and that we're doing some further work into. We've got about 4 or 5 minutes left. I think we've got a second. Oh, we do, and we wouldn't want to move on. We put a lot of effort into getting that poll ready. So let's get that poll up. And this one is actually around attracting talent to our industry. And you'll see that pop up in a moment. And this works on a self-regulated honesty system. Please only select 2. You could select all 5, but then that's semi-cheating. So see if you can pretty please just what you believe the top 2 reasons would be why attracting new talent to our industry is difficult. Seeing some of the results coming in. Yeah, low pay. And that that second option is specifically when we're talking with other trades and industries. One of the things that my team and I are exploring is that we know that, you know, across the Australian economy, every industry is fighting for talent. We're not unique. There's definitely even a human capital shortage, and one of the wins, as you know, that we generally need to get is to convince someone that a career via a vet pathway or a trade can be just as, and sometimes even more rewarding than, say, a higher education or university pathway. And it's horses for courses. Certain things we need our universities for, but assuming you've won that argument and you've convinced someone to perhaps do a trade, you know, if they have a choice and they've got the capacity to become an electrician, a plumber, you know, whatever it might be, or say an automotive technician or an automotive electrician, or you know, are we losing that competition as well, perhaps because the other trades perhaps pay better after graduation, obviously not during the apprenticeship. Okay, so I think we've got most of the responses, which is amazing. So let's have a look at that. So the highest one is, yep, okay, low pay compared to other trades and industries. And then coming in second is poor industry perception, reputation. Okay, thank you for that. And like I said, we are delighted to be having launched a project that really wants to dive into that poor industry perception and reputation. It's something that if you're interested in, please make sure you go to our website. There is some project details up there around that, and we'll certainly be sharing that with our stakeholders once we get the findings of that. And importantly, using that data to help inform strategies to address that. The low pay compared to other trades and industries, I guess, is a difficult one. In the 1 or 2 minutes that we've got left before we move to the next session, love to hear if anyone's got any views in regard to what, if anything, can be done to attract that, to change that. I mean, I know we can't necessarily compete with the mining industry. That's a hard one. But even against other, you know, non-mining trades or in general, what can we do, if anything, to potentially pay our automotive employees more, but without sinking the industry and without, you know, crippling the employers? So if anyone has a view around that, love to hear it. Why is too often forgotten? Okay, so that last one, if the trade was licensed, we could compete. Okay, interesting. Thank you for whoever wrote that in there. And we've got, oh, and you got a thumbs up for that too. So very special. Okay, something for us to look into. Just want to make sure if there's anything else that anyone wants to mention before we move on to the next section. And again, come back right to the beginning. These are sort of like the speed dating of workforce planning, right? So we've got only a short few minutes, but by all means, if there's something that you want to reach out to us with outside of the session, please do. And we're happy to do deeper dives. So, yep, it's licensed in New South Wales. Challenge on both sides. Business owners need to be sure they're charging a fair rate on labour too. Yep. Getting an understanding of business expenses. Consumers pay way over $100 and people get paid a lot less. Okay. And the cost of repairs would increase. Yep. EV transition may help the dirty oil. Yeah, so that last comment, look, we're hoping so, and it be interesting to see what we can together as an industry do to help promote that further. You know, and you've got the EV, but we know we've also got the, you know, the advanced driver systems. I mean, the modern vehicle these days with cameras and radars and you know, the onboard systems are immense. So the ability to work on, you know, that it's not all about mechanical, it some high-tech stuff there too. Okay, I'm getting messages. Michael is cracking the whip. He's going, Jan, you're waffling, move on. Okay, great. Oh yes, hydrogen, that's not lost on us as well. In fact, we're working up with industry a project around hydrogen, and that got a thumbs up as well, so thank you for that. That's right. And look, even internally, and you'll see in the upcoming sessions, we're trying to use terminology like zero emissions vehicles, because we know there's work going on in regard to biofuels, hydrogen, and yes, battery electric as well. Can you promote some of the more modern aspects of the trade, like EVs, thermal management, battery cooling systems? Absolutely. I think the more that we promote the fact that the industry covers off on a range of tasks and job opportunities, the better. So thank you for that. And then need a national approach to lift the profile. To respect the trade, and pay rates need to be revised to account for the sheer technological advancements in the industry. Thank you for that too. Awesome. Look, really, really appreciate it. I'll move us on. And so, okay, we have a slide here now for us to go through. Click on that. Sorry. Now, the next one, training needs. So here what we'd love to do is just explore with you how as an industry we're engaging with the vet system. We know that the industry is very reliant on the vet system, a lot of trades. What we want to make sure is that we hear from industry as to whether the qualifications that we have are fit for purpose, that the quality of training being delivered is meeting industry's expectations, and if not, why not? And you know, what would you like to see changed? We know that not every bit of training occurs in the accredited space. There's a lot of training that takes place in the non-accredited space, and that has absolutely a part to play. The question there could be, you know, what, if any, of the current training in the non-accredited space could maybe be brought into the accredited space? And the answer may be none. And does the current training environment that we have and the qualifications that we have, do we feel that that is actually supporting career progression? So these are just, again, just some prompters. And as far as data, and I'll leave it on this slide as well. Now, the graphs that I've put up there are from one of the subdivisions. So this is not across the entire automotive, but this is from the service and repair element of our industry, which is where the bulk of the training occurs. So the automotive manufacturing subsector has about 475 people completing training, and there is a fair bit of training happening in the sale and wholesale as well, but it's not generally trade specific. So as far as the service and repair subsector of the automotive industry, that's where the bulk of our training is occurring. Now, pleasingly, I suppose you can see there that the amount of people that are commencing training is growing year on year, which is fantastic. Interestingly, when you have a look at the graph on the right, that same level of growth is not evident in regard to apprenticeships in that space. So are apprenticeships growing? They are. But there's obviously a lot of other training going on outside of an apprenticeship stream. Be interesting to explore that, and you'll see the table there as well. It's interesting. We know we've got a number of vocational preparation programs. So the Certificate 2 in automotive vocational preparation. Interesting that at that point we attract a lot more women into that preparation course, and just anecdotally, you know, only about a third of them will continue on to say an apprenticeship. Now, that's not all the apprenticeships, but obviously the light vehicle technology is the highest as far as enrolment. But you'll see if that table, if I had to put the entire table there, you would have seen that generally that female participation rate is generally the same for the others as well. So again, these are just some prompts, so I'm going to be quiet and have a sip of water. Love to hear from anyone in regard to your view as to how well the vet system is serving us as an industry and any other opportunities. I have 75 apprentices in my portfolio, 10 female. Okay, cool. Great, thank you. RTOs are limited in delivering training by training packages which are often out of date, and sometimes the requirements and the performance evidence are very time consuming. Okay, great. And look, if you haven't already had a chance to explore our website, again, one thing I will invite you, especially for this section, is that we do have a training product feedback mechanism on our website that is available 24 hours a day, and our team jump on that straight away. If there's ever a individual unit or an element within one unit or an entire qual or anything that you would like to provide feedback on, if it's within the AUR or AUM package, then we can work with you to look into that, and that can be the beginning of what becomes a project to enact change. So make sure you avail yourself to that on our website after this session. I would like to see how that data changes now they receive an ATAR for their studies. Okay, yeah. And obviously, and to that point as well, obviously sometimes there is a lag in data. So by the time we're able to present data, it's probably already well over a year outdated. Oh, and thank you, Kate. So one of our amazing team members also has chucked the link in there, or placed the link in the chat for the training product feedback. Okay, let me read this. Outside of the box thinking is required regarding attraction and retention for the trade. Heard of an example recently where large employers successfully targeted a high number of female recruits who work between 9 and 2:30 to accommodate school drop-off and pickup, utilize mature age part-time apprenticeships. Love it. Fantastic. And I said, Michael, in his journeys amongst you, has come back with a number of little inventive examples, and these are the things that we look forward to highlighting in the workforce plan, so that others can maybe take a leaf out of that book and apply that. So thank you very much for that comment as well. Now we have a poll, I do believe. Yes. Okay. This will get you guys cranked up. So some of the conversations we've had is around how prepared some of these our students are when they enter the apprenticeship stream. And there's certainly been some views that have been expressed to us that when the apprentices start, they're not ready, they're not fully prepared, and then that pressure goes on to the RTOs and the employers, and there was this general feeling that the education system is not helping to prepare students for further education. So without, trying to make it look like we're throwing the education system under the bus, we do have a poll, which Annalise is going to bring up, which is it's a two-parter, depending on the answers, but we'll see. Simple yes and no when it comes up, and just to see what your views are in regard to whether our education system is in fact helping to prepare our young and mature people, for that matter, to do an apprenticeship. So, is the education system adequately preparing students to commence and, importantly, succeed in an apprenticeship stream? So, simple yes, no. I can't see the results yet, but I think Annalise might be able to.
I can. Sitting at no is 80%. Yes.
Okay, 80% no. Okay, cool. Well, not cool. It's sad, but it is what it is. So a couple of more yeses. So 71 to 29. Okay. Thank you. And how many? That's 11. I've still got some more responses coming in. So I'm just looking up at the screen here. 11 of you. Okay. Oh, and I didn't tell them there is a second part to the question, which was on the basis of assuming that the majority of you would say no. At the bottom of the poll, there's a little right arrow. If you click on that, it'll take you to the second part. And so if you answered yes, which of the following, I'll say, I think it's if you answered no.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's my mistake, actually. So disregard that. If you think the education system is not serving us, that's okay. That's my bad. And which of the following factors do you consider to contribute most to the unpreparedness of students? Now, I know that for most of you, you may have been tempted to select all or multiple. So I'm forcing you to pick one that you think is the most biggest contributor. As well, and I think we've had fairly good responses. So mind you, there's 54 of you on the call, and we've had 28 responses. Not trying to guilt you into participating, but I sort of am. So if you haven't voted yet, feel free. the way it's standing at the moment is 81% of you of the view that the education system is not adequately preparing students. And on that basis, currently, without wanting to influence anyone else that may not have voted, currently 57% of you are saying that incorrect perceptions of expectations is a key issue. And thank you for that. And then it's an even split after that in regard to life skills and LLN skills as well. And interesting, no one thinks that poor digital skills are the biggest issue, and that's okay. I'm not suggesting that should be surprising. I mean, generally, anecdotally, the conversations we've had with industry is that, if anything, the younger people in particular are, of course, quite digitally savvy, which is good. But certainly, this incorrect perception of expectations, and that, I guess, could also then come back to the conversation we had earlier around whether that's everything from careers guidance right through to what industry is doing to pitch itself properly. I'd love to, and I wonder without, I mean, we probably may not need to do this as a poll, but I'd love to ask this question. This would be great. Is there something that we could do to address that? So incorrect perceptions of expectations, do you think that could be addressed within the Certificate 2 of pre-vocational preparedness? I've got the wrong, it's the automotive certificate. Yeah, you know what I mean. Work with me, people. It's the Certificate 2 in the vocational preparation program, which I know is a very popular tool used to bring people through, especially from high school into the apprenticeship stream. Do we feel that some of these things could be addressed by making changes to that qual? Also having a quick look at the comments while I'm letting you think about that. Life experience, yes. Due to the hours for the current training package is inadequate. Okay, so that person who just said that the RTOs and TAFEs feel under pressure due to the hours, is that for the Cert 2 or the Cert 3? Is that for the apprenticeships? Improve standards of literacy and numeracy. Yep, see that. Is definitely something we've heard. And we know that a lot of you are engaging positively with the idea of the block release. See if I can find that comment. Be better if they start the TAFE component of their apprenticeship after some time in work. Okay. Yep. Okay, great. Good feedback. Thank you. Standards, the higher number of Cert 4 enrolments was a surprise. Yeah, now we are doing a bit of a deeper dive in regard to the Certificate 4 enrolments to ascertain how many of them are actually international students versus domestic students. So we will be doing some data investigation around that. Anecdotally, and it is just anecdotally, we know that some of the Cricos colleges will package quals like a Cert 3, a Cert 4 and a diploma in order to, under the previous system, to get to the 2-year packaged result. So it could be that the higher enrollment numbers for the Cert 4 are international students. Get to us at Cert 2. Yeah, okay, it's too late. Yep, I understand that. Some of the conversations we've had around the Cert 2 is, I think everyone agrees that it is a great program. It's a great feeder for the industry. But there was some question as to whether, it could maybe benefit from a slightly different approach, including maybe embedding some of the LLN skills, which we know are not necessarily being fully addressed through the education system. And that is a conversation we'll continue to have with you even outside of this webinar, but that's been some really valuable feedback. Before we move on to the next section, I just want to make sure I give anyone else an opportunity to share any thoughts or views.
Last comment.
A lot of RTOs are not abiding by the volume of learning requirements in their training delivery. I know ESCWA are looking at this as part of the new integrity squad. Okay, absolutely. Tick and flick does no one any good, and certainly not the apprentices. Yes, there is and thank you for that last comment. There is a broader piece of work that my team and I are doing in regard to the international education interaction with our industry, and I guess skilled migration more broadly. I know we didn't even get a chance to really touch on that, and skilled migration is a complicated issue in itself, but there's definitely conversations that we're continuing to progress. So please watch this space around how we can improve the quality of international students interacting with our industry. Pressure from employers because of staff shortages is impacting on and look, we have heard that as well, and again, whilst no one's doing it deliberately, what we've heard is that the amount of on-the-job mentoring and actual coaching, to supplement and support the training they're receiving at the TAFE or the RTO is perhaps in some instances, and we know this is a big broad brush statement, but in some instances may be lacking simply because of the immense pressure that everyone is under. So that's right. So that last, and that's exactly the Cert 3, 4, and then the diploma, because they package it up so that they become onto that PR pathway, and then they come with no practical skills. Real issue, and we are aware that it is on our radar. All right, fantastic. Hey, thank you so much for everyone being so engaged. Really, really great. So we'll move on to the next session, which is our journey. And it's not just our industry, as a whole country, we are on an exciting journey to net zero. But certainly, I mean, the automotive industry is pretty much front and center as part of that. So love to, again, as far as just prompting some conversation, we know that EV sales are growing. In fact, I just saw just today the February figures for EV sales, I think, is now at just under about 11%, I think it was for February. I should have written it down, whereas I think for 2023 it was already up towards 9.2%. Thank you, someone, for helping me out. I literally read it about an hour ago before coming in here. So EV sales are growing, but depending on what new service you prescribe to and how broad you want to look internationally, in some international jurisdictions, there's a view that the sales volumes may be plateauing or slowing down, or the rate of growth could be slowing down. Another question for all of us is, when and how will hydrogen make a meaningful impact on the automotive industry, and are we ready for it? What are the training programs that we need in order to support our industry on this journey? And obviously that's an important thing for Osmasa to be aware of, because we want to make sure that we equip the industry with the tools it needs. How can we support a workforce that will need to support both ICE engines and zero emissions vehicles? And what impact, if any, will the new vehicle efficiency standards have on the automotive industry workforce? So the key word here is workforce. We know that there's a lot of conversation happening around the new vehicle efficiency standards and what that may or may not look like for the consumer. We probably, as a Jobs and Skills Council, don't want to get sucked into that, but what we would like to know is, what's the impact on the workforce? And we know that there's some, conversation, especially from our colleagues at the Motor Trades Association of Australia, happening in regard to, can the training and the workforce keep up with this change? Be definitely keen to hear your views around that. And as always, to kind of give us something to think about, this is courtesy of the AAA. So thank you to them. We're proud members of them. And when they did some research, and admittedly this research does date back to 2021. However, I thought it was a really good representative of what it could look like for our entire vehicle population under 3 different scenarios of EV sales. So just get the conversation going. Okay, hydrogen will surpass EV. Okay, we have a hydrogen true advocate in the room, and that's great to hear. Be interesting to see how that goes about. And I'm not disagreeing or agreeing with that, by the way. I think it'd be really interested to hear the transition timeline from diesel to hydrogen skills for heavy vehicle mechanics. Awesome. Yeah, and that is a conversation, especially Michael within my team has been having. And we know that that's, from our understanding, the most likely immediate growth area for hydrogen within the heavy vehicle, bus, heavy haulage, And so what we want to do is work with industry to make sure that any particular skill sets or full qualifications, if you deem that needed, that we work with you to develop them so that we're ready for that. Yeah, so they're not for cars, possibly for larger vehicles. Absolutely. And so this comment around the average age of vehicles in Australia is 20 years. So we know, and that's why even that graph on your screen, if you have a look, and these graphs are not trying to be pessimistic in any sense, but what it shows you is that even in a scenario where by 2030, 50% of new cars being sold are EVs, under that scenario, at the same point in 2030, EVs would make up, I think, my eyesight's not that good anymore. I think it's 5.6%. Yeah, it's when you get older. It's pretty small on my screen. Yeah, correct. So we've got a poll to really get you going, and thank you for the thumbs up. I'm just going to take that thumbs up as a personal encouragement. Okay, so this is an interesting one. So we know that in the immediate future, we are going to continue to be in an environment where we will have a blend of internal combustion engine vehicles and zero emission vehicles. And note I said zero emission. Could be hydrogen, could be biofuels, could be battery electric, right? But there's going to be a range. And we're interested to hear from people what we think the best way that we can support the maintenance and repair workforce could be. And it's going to be a highly skilled workforce. So at the moment, the first option there is having separate specialist qualifications for each discipline, which pretty much is a status quo. So we've got, you know, the Certificate 3 and light vehicle technology. We've got the new Certificate 3 that focuses entirely on electric vehicles. So do we continue to go down that path? Do we look at having a new qualification, ambitious as it might be, that actually produces an automotive technician that from that one qual can service both disciplines, assuming that's achievable? Or do we have a baseline qualification that teaches all the other aspects of supporting vehicles, which we know all the common parts, and then have a range of specialized skill sets on top of that, and using skill sets as opposed to, say, dual trade or dual qual? So feel free to have a crack at that, and we'll see what people feel the viewers. So I think you can see the votes coming up, I think, already. Yeah, great. Okay. So it's currently showing at about 73% having a baseline qualification supported by a range of specialised skill sets. Okay, thank you. And by all means, continue to cast your vote. Good. You know, the interesting thing, and thank you for your feedback around that as well, I think it also feeds into the narrative around having better scaffolding of learning. And so as a team, we're currently preparing to launch a project in the near future that is going to look at doing some careers mapping, and actually exploring how people have the opportunity to enter our industry, how they are supported through their career advancement through the industry, either through accredited and non-accredited training, and whether there's opportunities then for higher pathways as well. And so this idea of potentially having a system that allows a scaffolding of learning is really interesting. So that's great feedback. Thank you. I appreciate that. That was not designed to mute the other conversation. So it's also important to retain older workers who might feel it's too hard to learn new tricks. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And so how do we accommodate that? And, you know, equally, we know we've had conversations around making sure that we use everyone in their work experience, regardless of age, including in the mentoring space, potentially, you know, transitioning even into a teaching role. We know we've got a teacher shortage or trainer shortage. Having a baseline, thank you. Bridging course to upskill existing workers is very important. Look, spot on. I suppose the question then I would have that in regard to the bridging course, we know we've got our two skill sets, so skill set 63 and 64. Do you feel that those skill sets are sufficient as far as the bridging course goes, or do you feel that something more comprehensive or new would need to be developed aside from those skill sets? And Michael is telling me to ask about HVAC. what exactly would you like me to ask, or just to the consideration, Michael, of HVAC?
Yeah, pretty much. Just as a skill set off to the side for the newer workforce transitioning from traditional mechanics over into the EV or hydrogen space.
Okay, awesome. To stop using the term zero emissions as it constitutes false advertising. Oh, okay. Well, sorry. I thought I was doing the right thing, but okay, I'll reprimand myself. Yeah, so HVAC is becoming more complex with thermal management, battery cooling, etc. Absolutely. And yet, ironically, that's the very thing that should make our industry more exciting, that it is not just, spinning spanners. They, 63 needs an overhaul. Okay. And please, by all means, remember that link further up. Jump on that link and tell us what you think needs an overhaul, or just reach out to us, be it Michael or Will or myself, or send us an email. Would love to hear what that potentially would look like. Remarkably, we're doing well for time. I say that because normally with me, it's Michael. He is a taskmaster. He is keeping me on point. All right, so fantastic. Few more minutes to see if there's anything else. Again, remember, for us, the important thing is by you putting these comments in, it's putting things on our radar that you believe are important for us to consider in our workforce plan. We know that doesn't mean we're going to fix everything in this session, but at least it gives us something to follow up. 63 and 64 cater well when explained clearly to the client. Okay. So when you say, so is that from an RTO? Is that an RTO indicating that people or potential learners are coming to them with the wrong expectations? Or when we say the client, is that, love to just understand what you mean by that, but thank you for the feedback. Okay, yep, TAFE New South Wales. Okay, awesome. Thank you, and we can obviously follow up with you afterwards as well. I'm going to have a quick sip of water. Speak now, or we'll hold your peace, and then we'll move on. When engaging with industry, okay. Ensure employers and older technicians are aware of government funding for upskilling, either for the employee or employer. Right. Okay, so what's everyone's view about having accredited micro-credentials as a stepping stone? And I mean, I know there's a lot of conversations around the place around micro-credentials. We know we're working our way towards having a national skills passport. I mean, I know we're in the net zero session now, but just melding it a little bit. I mean, one of the things that we've had some initial conversations with industry around is that, a future education pathway even for master technicians. So we know that a lot of the training for master technicians is OEM specific. And I get it, that makes sense. Whereas in some countries, and I think the UK being the example that was given to us, is that that's actually a licensed achievement. When you become a master technician, you get a license. Is there something where the vet system could better provide an actual pathway, or is that the current Cert 4 and it's just being underutilized, or could there be an industry-led agreement that a certain number of skill sets combined, or a Cert 4 plus OEM training leads to an agreed approach to becoming a master technician? Which again, could help in industry perception. Should be Cert 4. That is, and we have heard that as well. Where the Cert 4, and again, I will share with the group as soon as we finish that data investigation that the belief is that a lot of the enrolments within the Cert 4 are international students, but we want to verify that. Back to the old A or B grade rates. Okay. Cert 4, if delivered correctly, even the Diploma of Automotive. Okay, thank you. Have a look at how the IMI in the UK promotes what they do in this space. Okay, I will. Thank you. Great little lead. We'll go off and look into that. Great. Fantastic. Thank you, everyone. All right, well, we are on the home stretch for yourselves being able to go off and have some lunch in a moment, if you're on the East Coast. So our last session for our interactive webinar is in some respects a bit of a catch-all, but it is really wanting to look at what's around the corner, what's on the horizon, what are the trends that we think will shape the skills needs of the automotive industry in the near future. And some of this may be a repetition of what we've discussed. So, for example, hydrogen. Just very quickly, I'm going to pause. Is there any potential for higher degree apprenticeships with increasing? In short, yes. So our team and Helen, my great colleague in the training product development team, and her team are exploring high degree apprenticeships at the moment. So we will absolutely be exploring that and be seeking industry involvement as part of that. But okay, so what else? What about automation? What about artificial intelligence, advanced driver assistance technologies? How will they change work requirements in the industry? Is digital literacy a current issue in the workplace? And what will this look like in the future? What technology or trend is on the horizon that will impact the industry's workforce? So this is sort of your opportunity to let us know what you think is, things that you think we really need to be considering now, because they'll be upon us faster than we probably like. And knowing that, developing a response to anything does take a little bit of time. So what do you, as an industry insider, see on the horizon that you think this needs to be on Osmasa's radar and the government's radar that we need to consider? Michael was giving hints there. He's saying biofuel. He's going into that and there's no poll for this one. No, we've posted them. You have been fully posted. So this is purely an open session. The last one of what you think the impact or on the horizon is. I'm going to assume people are typing. Otherwise, everyone wants an early lunch. Here we go. Energy efficiency as part of net zero, risks and benefits of the newer refrigerants that are better for the environment, fire protection systems. Okay, fantastic. Thank you. New courses as EV batteries reach the end of life. And yeah, thank you for that. So we are not very good at recycling EV batteries at the moment, and I don't think that's just purely an Australian issue. I think the EV or the battery electric vehicle sector around the world has grown at a rate of knots, and the full of life recycling or the end of life recycling is probably still catching up. And if we don't get that right, it's just a shameful waste of extremely precious resources, and many of the gains that we would have hoped to have achieved from an environmental point of view, would just be wasted if we can't get that right. So thank you for that. Yes.
That also might be pairing skills would really be part of that conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. New courses. So thank you. I think the conversation around connected automated vehicles has been sidelined.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Good point. Yeah. I think there's been obviously a focus on the electrification of our vehicle fleet, and there is still a conversation to be had of what does that look like as we move more and more to automated vehicles, and the skill sets required to maintain them. I mean, that could be a whole completely new skill set, much more highly digitally enabled and software enabled qualifications. Quality of training. We can bring in new qualifications with regards to new technology, but we still need to fix the quality of trainings that is produced by the RTOs. Thank you for that comment as well. There's definitely been some conversations around in regard to almost as an industry agreeing on the minimum expectation of the quality of training, including what we would expect an RTO, private or public, to have from a facilities point of view, the duration of training, and we know that varies. And some of the comments earlier around some of the international students that are taught with very, very little, or in some cases no practical experience, and then it ranges right through to, we know that we've got some absolutely amazing training providers that are and passionate trainers. So it's a spectrum that's annoying, the lower end of the spectrum anyway. And how can industry better support our training providers? Love to hear that. Or what do we think the role of industry is in supporting the training providers? What can we do? Or what would the training providers like to see from industry, to support them? Quality training to me measured trade test would prove this. Okay. Okay. So what, like a capstone type approach or
licensing?
licensing? Yeah. Okay. Someone agrees with something. What are we agreeing with? The trade test or the same as, oh yeah, so the capstone. Okay, great. And look, that's certainly come up in conversation, the trade test. All right. And I suppose the argument there being is that as much as it is a test of the ultimate knowledge of that the apprentice has gotten, it would also be a reflection back onto the training provider, I'm assuming, and the employer. That's right. Thank you, Michael. Good on you. RTOs are governed by the units of competency and packaging rules, so maybe the units need to be more dynamic. Okay. The difficult, yeah, dynamic in which way? Happy to have that conversation. Love to hear from if there's any RTO, and we know we've got RTOs in this webinar, and you're delighted to have you. Is there more support you would like to see from industry? And if so, what would that look like? Or are you satisfied that you've got some great industry partnerships and you're getting all of the support that you need? If not, that would be, we'd love to hear from you. Yep. If the RTO is providing quality training, then there should not be a need for trade test. Yep. Many RTOs already receive great support and pockets regarding access to equipment and tech data, but always opportunities for greater collaboration. Some coordinated vehicle and equipment donation schemes in the past worked really well. Fantastic. Feel free, whoever wrote that comment, feel free to reach out to, say, Michael or myself. Love to hear what those examples were, when those schemes ran and what that looked like, because that's something we could showcase. Wider industry understanding the requirements of the training package and how volume of learning works, the higher time the apprentice is released from work. Okay. Would like better guidance from industry around the emerging skill needs and specific skill needs. Fantastic. So that's the conversation piece then. And I think the industry partnerships are great, but there's opportunities to work with industry to support teacher industry currency. Great comment, Doug. Thank you. And I know that's the conversation we've had, you know, is it around, and I know that certainly in Western Australia, there's been some announcement recently around, you know, trainers from one of the public providers being released to work within industry, I think on an annual basis, to maintain their skills, their own skills and currency as well. Support apprentices with the tools and equipment they need to succeed at their off-the-job training. Yeah, okay. So that would be a government, I suppose. Are you saying some government incentives there to help pay for the tools, or are you seeing that as the employers providing the apprentices with the right tools and equipment they need to succeed at the off-the-job training? Very good support by the industry to TAFE New South Wales with resources. Thank you. Great to hear, and obviously great facilities down there. TAFE New South Wales, I had the benefit of visiting last year. That was great to see. Fantastic. Well, look, we're nearing the end of our inaugural, first ever interactive webinar, and you know, we spearheaded it with Automotive. Go Automotive. I think, thank you. Oh, look, thank you. I'm assuming that was for me. So look, as far as next steps go, first and foremost, again, hey, a huge thank you. You know, everyone's really busy. Taking 90 minutes out and being on this learning journey with us is super appreciated. You've given us a heap of things to take away and think about. Really appreciate it. Please stay involved. Make sure you know, this sounds like a pitch, but it's a good pitch. You know, stay engaged with us on our socials. Feel free to reach out to Will, Michael, and myself. You know, and importantly, can I start a podcast? Okay, well, you are my new favorite person, whoever wrote that. So thank you. My ego didn't probably need that, but I'll take it. Thank you. Importantly, if you think that we missed anything, by all means, reach out. You know, if there's an elephant in the room, if you want to go into greater detail with us, let us know. You will get the recording and you will get a survey. we will now add a question around the title of the podcast in the survey. So there's going to be a naming competition there. But also I'd love to hear from you in regard to what worked well. Now, Michael, what do you want me to ask you?
Can we contact in regards to some of the comments and questions?
Yeah, possibly. Can we see who wrote what?
Just me.
Okay, and Leaf. Yeah. So okay. So if we do reach out to you, then that would be why. So we may well touch base with you just to maybe explore some of these themes a bit further. And very importantly, thank you, Emily. If you're not already subscribed to our e-newsletter, The Journey, your life is not complete, quite simply. So for ultimate happiness, please do subscribe. And that way you'll always know what our projects are that are going on, progression with our workforce plan, where we might be around the country if we're holding roundtables. So it is a really worthy newsletter to be part of. Other than that, a huge thank you, as I said, and have an amazing rest of your day. And we look forward to staying engaged with you. The workforce plan, we're hoping, we don't have a definitive date because it does go through a lot of checks and balances, but we're hoping that by June in 2024, no, obviously 2024, sorry, in June, we'll be looking at launching that, but it may well be that we'll be reaching out again for before that to test certain themes that we might be exploring. But this has been a huge help to us and hopefully insightful for you as well. So thank you very much, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.